Hi everyone, welcome back to Heartland Mamas.
I'm Heidi Henry, and I'm really in your face today, Murray.
I'm Murray Briel, and I'm trying to save the sanity of the human race.
Because, Murray, today we're talking about psychological abuse of the nation. And I'm not talking about
malicious manipulation.
That's alliteration, and you know how much I love
I
alliteration.
love alliteration too. Malicious manipulation and...
Well, we have to talk about how that it becomes extortion, it becomes gaslighting, and it could lead us to civil war, legitimately. And it's something that we need to be really concerned about, and it's something we need to talk about today. Because the nation, Murray, is basically split into thirds, and there's been long-term psychological studies on this, where a third of people are going to identify as ultra-conservative, although for the life of me, I can't figure out what you're conserving at this point. A third of people are going to be like me, and perhaps Murray, because we've never really talked about the fact that I'm a hard over left progressive, and you may or may not be. And then there's a third of people that are apathetic and don't vote. They may have an opinion, sometimes they vote, but they're the people that cost us elections. They're the people that cause this stuff to happen. The fact that our president can say, what you're reading and what you're seeing and what you're hearing is really not what you're reading, seeing, and hearing. And there's a third of the population of the United States that go, yeah, you know, he's right. That it is the deep state that's manipulating things. And here we are.
There's so many reasons why that is. We've talked before about how religion has an impact, about how lack of information has an impact, about how internet, just access in general.
Murray.
We forget that so much of our country is not urban, and yes, the population centers are urban, but there are so many communities across this country that are isolated, that don't get the information, and it all builds on one another. And I think that's how we get those third that are so far right. I think it has to do with communication. It has to do with information.
Yeah.
It has to do with community, with religion. It all plays into each other.
And you and I, both as former candidates, know that the Democratic Party, which we are both Democrats, unabashedly so, spends no time delivering the message to voting blocks or voting groups that they don't feel are important, and that would be small populated areas, rural areas, agricultural areas. Those people, like where I live, not so much where Murray lives, but where I live, we're just left out of the conversation. We're considered to be unimportant because our votes don't matter. They're still going to carry the areas they plan to carry without our being completely on board. So Murray and I started this podcast to try to bring forward the message. So what is our topic today?
And the second reason we started this podcast was to bring a touch of reality to what is going on. I'm a big believer in facts. I like statistics. Yeah. Statistics lie. That's why you have classes on it.
Yeah.
But I like facts, and I want to understand what goes on both sides. God forbid I said that phrase. But it is true.
Well, that's why we went to the Trump rally. Murray,
exactly. We went to the Trump rally because we needed to see
more than a 10-second soundbite.
From either team.
Yes, because it's all skewed depending, and a big reason why I am not a cable news watcher, because everything is slanted one way or the other. You don't have a lot of middle ground except for maybe CNN, which for some reason, because they kind of try to straddle that middle ground, our president really hates them.
But you know, Heidi, you mentioned CNN.
Yeah.
And CNN does, but I think where we are is we have 24-hour news networks.
Yeah.
But if we think back to when the news originally came out, well, before we had specialized stations, before we had so many channels, it was, they gave you information. This is journalism.
Right.
There was always a bias, a little slant, but it was mostly genuinely pretty fair. And we talk about how...
fair and balanced reporting.
We talk about how Fox is so far...
to the right.
To the right, and Young Turks is so far to the left. And so here's where we are, is as the 24-hour news cycle became popular, as
Right.
cable stations grew, as satellite stations grew, we needed to fill that time.
The non-news
we
time.
didn't have enough news, facts, and information, so we began filling that with opinions
Right.
about facts and information.
People like Murray and I, but maybe a little less, I won't say connected, but ingrained in fact and more in opinion. And Murray and I can go that way too. We are very opinionated people. But the problem with that is that we lose the context of reality. And when you lose that context, that's when you get gaslighting. That's when you get propaganda. That's when you get all this confusion where what our president says, what you're hearing and what you see with your own eyes is not really what's happening, when we know for a fact that is what's happening. And
again, that line gets blurred. It goes back to lack of information, lack of awareness. I remember having classes on media and whatnot, but that was a long time ago, and we don't give that literacy. So
No.
people are not learning the distinction between actual news and fact and opinion. So, this ties in with what happened yesterday, or I'm sorry, Friday. Shepard Smith, reporter for Fox News, resigned, was fired. We don't know exactly.
Wasn't there a meeting between the Trump administration officials and Rupert Murdoch, the
Of course,
owner,
it had absolutely nothing to do with this.
the owner of Fox
Oh.
News, and then Shepard Smith is gone?
It had nothing to do with this. It actually really even shocked his own coworkers. Some of the news channels were showing his.
Really? You think that shocked them?
Well, they didn't know it was coming. Who was on
Murray,
the air
Fox
when?
is state-run TV. I mean, think about all the revolving door of people that have come through there just in the last couple of years.
But you're exactly right. And what has happened is the reason this is so devastating to anyone who might actually try to get news from Fox is because Shepard Smith was probably the most fair and legitimately interested in facts with less opinion than anyone else on that station.
Well, and I'm
They've
holding
slowly moved them out, like
Yes.
you said.
Yes, Chris Wallace is
Facts,
next.
information, gone. So here's Shepard Smith, who was kind of the linchpin of actual fact that maybe those not quite 1/3, but closer.
You mean the one that Trump supporters turn off at night?
Right, but the other ones. But I'm talking that one, that small area would
Yeah.
at least get some information that
Right.
maybe would cause them to think. Like Heidi and I have worked with folks before, and
Yeah.
it seems to help. So now he's gone, which leads for more opinion shows. Opinion about fact. More Judge Jeannie, more Mark
gone.
Levin. These folks are taking over, and we as consumers are not understanding that it's not news. Because like Heidi and I are telling you facts right now. We're giving you information, but we're also interjecting our opinions. We are not news. We didn't do the reporting, but we let you know that, where
Right.
most won't. And you take what someone is saying opinion, that's where pundits come from.
Well, in no way, shape, or form does it say Heartland Mama's News.
Absolutely not.
It's a podcast.
I just ate my microphone.
Yeah. and we don't call ourselves news because we are, more pundits, more opinionated women.
And so we've talked, Heidi made an excellent point. She talked about Fox and how it is a propaganda arm, and how the balanced gentleman is now moving on. And so that becomes state TV, like she said.
It is state-run TV. It is state-run TV.
The administration has enough power, pull, and control to force more opinion, less fact. That affects that core rabid base. That affects the center part, the right part of the center group.
Yes, and Murray, and it also affects the people that are to the left. But when you look at the analogy of that, where you see these third, and third, you realize that the hardcore Oath Keeper sect no longer considers Fox truthful. They no longer consider them extreme enough for their messaging. And that's how we get to an advancement of a more violent sect of the community that uses more of an underground opinion source where they use propaganda, where they use salacious information, where they can twist facts like Pizzagate, which ended up causing a person to break into a pizza parlor somewhere on the East Coast and try to shoot it up because they thought they had sex slaves in the basement.
And, oh yeah, and let's not forget that this is not the beginning of this. Recently is not anything new. Since he ran for office, politics has been this way forever. But
Yeah.
since Trump took office, he has consistently put out incorrect information, not understanding, twisted words, taken things out of context.
He deliberately manipulates the psychology of the nation. Deliberately, Murray.
I don't think he's that smart yes, because he has the mob boss mentality.
He does. And Murray and I both live in Illinois. We've lived close enough to Chicago, and I grew up in the Chicago suburbs.
I lived in
We know
Chicago,
from mob bosses.
yeah.
You know, we know quid pro quo when we see it. And Murray, quid pro
Quid
quo.
pro quo.
I have a terrible speech impediment, and I have to slow down sometimes, and I speak 50 miles an hour with gusts up to 300.
You have a reason. I'm just goofy sometimes.
But what quid pro quo means is that if I scratch your back, you'll scratch mine, but we both get something out of it.
A transactional society,
Right.
which we are.
And we, here in Illinois, people will talk about the Chicago Democratic machine when they absolutely know that that's not really a thing anymore. That's back in the day. But we see it all the time, and we see it more in politics now than we've ever seen it before on the Republican side, because they don't do anything except for the consolidation of money and power. For money and power, this whole country will go to hell in a handbasket because Robert Mueller has a book deal. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're not going to know the truth in a congressional hearing, but we'll hear it when his book deal comes out. And guess who's not reading his book at all? I'm not buying it, and I'm not reading it. Your chance to do the right thing as an American citizen, and I realize Mueller is a Republican, was to testify in Congress correctly based on the 900-page report that you made. And instead, you just waffled, and Rod Rosenstein is the same thing. And, I just get so tired of this. Just tell the frickin' truth. Just say what the truth is. I don't care if you get a book deal. And Murray, if I was in charge of things, nobody could have a book deal for 15 years after they've been in office. Period.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you better tell the truth when you're in office.
Alrighty. Okay. So
in your face.
Heidi, for whatever she can do to make sure nobody ever gets a book deal after they leave office.
Hey, I have a hard enough time getting a book deal. So I'm just kidding.
Heartland Mama's book deal. We're hilarious.
So getting back to that third of how the country is legitimately psychologically split. You have people who are, and I referred to it, Murray, in our pre-show meeting as Stockholm Syndrome. And I do believe that some of the observers, some of the 1/3 people, are that they're held prisoner by this constant bombardment of misinformation, and they have no choice but to fall in love with the people giving them that misinformation. And then you have other people, and I would say Lindsey Graham falls into this, is extortion. And what happens is that in order to get Lindsey Graham, and McConnell's a whole other thing, but in order for him to behave, Trump is extorting him somehow, because you can't say that electing Trump would be the downfall of the nation and then all of a sudden turn around and say he's the greatest thing that God ever created by the same person, right? And I think...
yeah, that's politics in a nutshell, dear.
Well, okay.
There's a big... Remember, it's again kind of like the news cycle, right? We have opinion news, and then there's actual news, facts and information versus facts and information and thoughts. And you go into it, and it's the same thing on the campaign trail for the media. It happens in Springfield all the time.
Well,
They're adversarial with each other back
Believe
and
me,
forth
I know.
for the people. But once you get down there, you work with this person. You change your tone. Everybody does it.
My race was a quid pro quo, and my state party wouldn't support me. So I totally, utterly get that on a level that most people I hope never experience it, because it's horrible when it really happens to you. And but what I was trying to get to, the whole purpose of this conversation, Marie, today, is to talk about the dangers of these this manipulation of facts, the dangers that it's bringing us to, because Trump is trying to ignite his base in a violent manner. Trump is the ultimate bully. So when he represents people who feel they've been wronged, who feel that they need a bully to defend them, and he draws people in to this, and he's the bully that's going to take care of that other bully, right? That bully beat you up, so I've got my Trump, and he's going to get you, right? Haven't you noticed that with people we've talked to that are Trump supporters? It seems like they've got an axe to grind. Either they hate women, they hate Democrats, they hate people of color, they're very xenophobic.
Absolutely. Oh, you are 100% right that those really rabid supporters, there's some
hate,
emotional driving factor.
Right. So they want their bully, who is Trump, to go out
to take out all the other bullies, or to give them permission
to be a bully.
I've said all along that with Trump coming to the forefront, being even running for president, the level of discourse had already dropped. Our civility, everything had gone down over the last 20 years. And when he came out, he gave a reason for every person who felt put upon, put out, bought into that xenophobic racist to say someone else in a position of power is acting this way. I can too. It gave them an excuse to drop their political correctness there.
That person of power has told them, the reason you don't have a golden toilet like I do is because that Mexican took it away from you, that black person took it away from you, the Democrats took it away from you,
the Kurds
took it away from you. He will throw that out there so that you can use that excuse to feel vindicated by supporting him. And I've told you, I've got a family member, a sibling, that is a diehard Trump supporter. And here's what the sibling has related back recently, that there'll be a civil war, that he'll be part of it, and that he's going to take out the Democrats first, starting with me. Come at me, bro. So, but I want you to know that he falls into that 1/3 that is really
hardcore
disturbed,
Captain Cuckoo.
Disturbed by this.
And not Captain Kangaroo.
Yeah, and I look at it and I think, I feel so sad for him, because he has the same mob boss mentality that Trump has. And yet when we meet hardcore Trump supporters, they have an axe to grind. Either it's with the fact that gay people are allowed to marry, the fact that gay people are allowed to worship God, the fact that black people are in positions of power, or
the fact that women are allowed to control their bodies.
Right. It's all of these things that might be a hot button issue. And what the Republicans have done very successfully is they've taken those issues and they've made it a way to pit us against one another. And that becomes
as we talked about in our last episode.
Yeah. We addressed this in our last episode, and but that rhetoric brings up that weird little faction from the bottom that is so vile, that is so violent, that if this bully doesn't
and they have
vanquish,
a justification for acting out on their innermost base, because the person who leads the country feels the same way that they
exactly
do.
He's given them permission to be this way.
Malicious manipulation. He's not. He's doing it to his specific group, to his base. He doesn't care about anyone else.
Well, in fact, the fact that he has extorted the president of Ukraine, which I just read something very interesting, Marie. I did not really realize that Zelensky, like Trump, was a former game show host. I think he might have been a comedian, and
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I read that today. I didn't know that. And here's my takeaway on that. You have two very unqualified people in positions of power trying to.
Well, the State Department, and this leads us to what happened last week. So a couple of things. One, Trump's approval rating or impeachment approval from the United States overall. The polls 2 weeks ago were in the low 40s. They came to impeach. Low 40s of
so
percent
that would be the
approval.
third plus some of the people in the
A week and a half ago.
Yeah.
So they just released some new polls on Friday, including a Fox News poll, surprisingly enough, that show impeachment favors by 52%. So that number has jumped dramatically, and that's the most conservative news site in a week and a half. Wow. So what's happened in that week and a half? The whistleblower.
Yes.
We've had resignations of secretaries of state.
Yes.
We have seen the extortion call. We've had a State Department official actually testify. We have seen Rudy Giuliani's we have seen... Okay, so let's real quick break down that first part.
Yeah,
okay.
Please do.
So we have seen, starting with the extortion call. That was a part of that poll. Oh, whistleblower. Where we see a big change is when we come to the money in politics. The opinions jumped dramatically, I believe, because it was proven that Rudy Giuliani's 2 buddies that worked for him, his henchmen, his clients, whatever you want to call them.
What country are they from?
Ukraine. They filtered money. They're U.S. citizens, but they filtered money to Trump,
yes,
to the Republican Party, to the
NRA.
Republican Party of Illinois.
Yes.
So they were pushing foreign money into our elections, affecting it. Now, to me, viscerally, I was already outraged way before, but it seems like this may be the line that middle third goes, oh, no, whether you're left on that third or right on that third, that middle third goes, we're done.
Yes.
You cannot use a foreign government to fund our elections. So they were funneling all this money from Russia, funneling from oligarchs. It's coming in. It's going out to all these Republicans.
Yeah.
It's going out to all Republican candidates up and down the ticket. It's going to special interest groups.
Yes.
So Americans, I guess, at this point said, hey...
Are connecting the dots?
Yeah, and then you see the extortion from Ukraine with... And the state Pompeo and they're going around the world trying to pretend this didn't happen.
Well, and here's another thing I read today. About, because I went ahead and I studied the transcript. Not the transcript, but the press release for the Ukraine call. Okay? Mm-hmm. So here's one of the things that I took away from this is that Zelensky tells Trump that the Ukraine wants to purchase more Javelin anti-tank missiles from the United States, and Trump responds with an ask for something by saying, "I would like you to do us a favor first." He goes on to suggest to Zelensky that the server for the Democratic Party. So now we're going back to email servers again. The server from the Democratic Party that was backed by the Russians somehow ended up in Ukraine, perhaps with a Ukrainian oligarch. And he asked Zelensky to find out what happened. But the problem with that is that there's no basis for believing the Democratic National Committee server wound up in Ukraine at all. It never appeared. It never happened. But what Trump is asking Zelensky to do
is manufacture
evidence.
Absolutely.
Just like he's asking. And the thing with Biden's son Hunter is Biden may have overstepped, but what he did wasn't criminal. Biden's son...
But no. At least my understanding is that, I'm sure if there was something there, but primarily it wasn't just Biden or the United States. It was all of our allies knew how corrupt that prosecutor was.
Right, exactly.
And it was causing...
The Ukraine prosecutor.
And then it made... the diplomat was the one at that point who had... Or the ambassador to the Ukraine was the one who had said corruption within Ukraine is the most dangerous factor in terrorism, in preventing Russia from encroaching. And that was her concern.
Right.
So I'm sure that was very unpleasant for anyone listening.
Hold yours.
So she decided that,
Yeah.
she knew that was the most important factor in keeping Ukraine stabilized. That's why every ally wanted him out. That's why Biden wanted him out. It did not have anything to do with the company or with his son or any interest.
All of that has been manufactured. And the reason I read it today, Marie, is because I didn't understand the Biden connection. Because there is no Biden connection.
No, there isn't.
This is completely manufactured by the Trump administration, by Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani, and trying to get the president of the Ukraine, who's obviously an unqualified comedian, stand-up comedian, who's now the president, talking to our president, who's an unqualified third-rate game show host, trying to manufacture evidence to take out Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. And it's like, why are you
So if we pile all this together in a quick timeline, we see, all right, approval ratings for impeachment, meh. Whistleblower comes out, meh. Transcripts are released. Transcripts Heidi just read that President Trump claims are false. He gave them over, but they're not real. He claims Adam Schiff lied about what was there, even though he read it
Trump's
directly.
Transcript.
It's his call, but it was a great call. We see the impeachment rating staying about the same. We see Rudy Giuliani's connections and his insanity. Then we find the two Ukraine gentlemen who he has worked with, who are arrested for campaign finance, for affecting elections, for federal crimes. Trump decides he doesn't know Rudy very much. And in between this, before we get there, the State Department, former ambassador to the Ukraine, comes out and speaks, and she explains how so much of the importance of Ukraine was the corruption aspect. You know, we have to keep corruption out. That's the only thing protecting us from Russia's advancement. There's no connection between the Biden thing. People are starting to see this, and I think that's the key that
I've watched enough TV shows to know manufactured evidence is something that you do on TV to get ratings, and manufactured evidence is something that I think our president learned that by watching SVU. He's manufacturing stuff out of thin air, he's connecting dots that don't exist.
I can logically comprehend spinning of the truth. It's kind of my life. I understand that. I understand. What I don't understand is okay. So like the Harry Reid thing. Harry Reid said he's a really smart guy, much smarter than people give him credit for, and that he could be a threat. He tweeted that, "Thanks, Harry," as if that was a compliment. And it was taken out of context.
Yes.
But it wasn't a compliment. So that kind of spinning, I understand.
Right.
The blatant this
and
is the transcript of the call. Adam Schiff read the transcript of the call, and I believe he maybe said, "and then Zelensky," instead of "and when Zelensky." So there may have been a word misspoken. And then he claims that this is fake, that this is a lie, that this isn't real.
Then why did Trump release this if it's a lie? Because he always lies about everything.
That level of sheer insanity is mind-boggling and terrifying, because there are those people that believe him, like Heidi talked about, and those people that believe him
violent,
defend
this as being a lie.
Absolutely. So I guess what we're saying is keep listening to us, because we're giving you actual information as well as our opinion.
And
don't lose your sanity.
Don't lose your sanity, and don't fall for it.
And Goebbels is dead, but I'm sure there's another one right around the corner. I believe his name's Stephen Miller.
Oh, yeah, Stephen. Oh, Stephen Miller. When Stephen Miller goes down, I want to say it's going to look like when they threw water on the witch. He's just going to melt. Right?
Well, we haven't even begun to talk about some of the other crazy things that have happened over the week, and we will definitely address the issue of the Kurds, the issue of Turkey at another episode.
And I'm going to say that the whole issue with the Kurds, Marie, is to distract us from the truth. It's another distraction because you're talking about bringing back 150 or 200 troops, not a lot, but enough that those bodies were there in the way of Turkish advance. And the problem with needing a distraction is it's going to cost people their lives, their very lives.
But I don't know if it. Well, and we'll talk about this. I'm not sure. Yes, he is using it as a distraction, but if he were smart, he would not have done that, because by pulling those troops back, that means that Russia.
If he were smart, come on, who are we talking about?
Right. Well, that's a whole other conversation for another time.
If there's grift, money, power involved, he's all over it. If it's human lives and doing the right thing and protecting our democracy, our president can't do that. He cannot do that because he's a narcissist. He cannot do that, Marie. And I talk about my one sibling has a narcissistic personality disorder, and watching our president, I can see he's got the same thing as a person who only went to community college and studied horticulture and business management and is a horse trainer by trade. Even I can see it. And the thing is that igniting his base is what he's good at.
Because it gives him accolations, it gives him adoration, it gives him that worship.
He's got to have that ego stroke regularly.
Which is, I think, why he likes all the dictators and all of the horrible leaders out there, because it makes him feel like a big man.
Yeah, it makes him feel like his penis is bigger than somebody else's.
Than a mushroom. I just said that.
I know you did.
Mushroom
and I shouldn't have said penis, but I did.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for tuning in. We covered a lot of information today.
Yes, we did.
Thank you for sticking with us.
And Marie, Wednesday night we're going to be watching the debates with McDonough County in Macomb, Illinois.
Macomb, Illinois, we're coming.
We're coming down to see ya. So we've been talking about going down to Macomb for months now, and we're really excited to take our show on the road.
And if you would like us to come out and do something, we have a lot of petition parties coming up. There are, as the season gets underway and gets exciting, if anyone is interested, we're going to be at the Will County Central Committee fundraiser in a week.
Yep.
So we've got a lot of things coming up. Please reach out to us and let us know. If you enjoy us, like, subscribe, and share. It's really important that we get our message out there.
And this is a hard topic. Today's topic is hard, and it's hard to condense down into 30 minutes. And we may revisit it at another time, but knowing the gaslighting, which means to confuse people, to make them think that what is false is real and what is real is false, confuses people who are the supporters of our president and of the Republican Party. And to see our Republican neighbors and friends going along and agreeing with this and thinking that this is right is frankly terrifying. My friend Jim Rome would say, you got to be smarter than that. So, but yeah, like us, share us.
Subscribe. We do have a donate button. We would love to have you support us.
We're having some equipment malfunctions today, so we need to buy new equipment.
We definitely need some new equipment. So, if you haven't already pledged your money to a candidate, hey, we'll help ya. No, send it to us.
Donate to the mamas.
Heartland Mamas, MAMAS, from the edge of the Great Red Divide. Find us everywhere.
Yeah.
And we will talk to you soon.
Take care now, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.